Fired up Bernie Sanders returns home for first Vermont rally of 2020 cycle. On a sunny day on the Burlington, Vermont, lakeshore in 2015, an independent U.S. senator with a relatively low national profile shocked the political establishment by turning out a boisterous crowd of thousands as he kicked off his unlikely presidential campaign. Now, almost exactly 4 years later and 40 miles down the road in the shadow of the State House, Sr. I Vermont you today. In a barnstorming speech, Sanders came out swinging, calling President Donald Trump a pathological. In a sweeping broadside against the current administration, Sanders said he was launching his campaign with confidence, optimism, and love, and said that the underlying principles of our government will not be greed, hatred and lies. The underlying principles of our government will not be racism, will not be sexism, will not be xenophobia, and will not be religious bigotry, and all the other mean-spirited beliefs of the Trump administration. The principles of our government will be based on justice, economic justice, racial justice, social justice, and environmental justice. Sadly,
raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.